Welcome back to Bible study. We are in our final lesson, and we're going to look at Philippians chapter 4, verses 10 to 23. In looking at these opening verses, Paul is now turning his attention back to the Philippians and thanking them for the financial gift they had sent. And there's a couple things that Paul wants them to know. First of all, he wants them to know that he wasn't anxiously waiting for their gift. He wasn't wondering, why haven't you sent something sooner? Don't you know that I needed something? He wants them to know, hey, I appreciate it, even though you may have not sent something sooner, and we're not really sure why they didn't send something sooner, but it's okay. You sent it when you could, and Paul just wants them to know that he's so grateful for the gift that they sent. And the second thing that Paul wants them to understand is that he hasn't been distressed, and he hasn't been longing and going without because they didn't send a gift. He doesn't want them to worry and think, oh, I hope Paul didn't suffer because we didn't send a gift quickly enough. He wants them to know, I was content. God is taking care of me. So I appreciate your gift, but God is holding me closely in his loving care. So then Paul talks about being content. He says, I learned the secret of being content in any circumstance. And of course, Paul's circumstances were quite dire. We don't really understand in our lives the kind of hardship and lifestyle that Paul faced. But he says he learned to be content. Twice he tells us he had to learn. It's not something that comes easy to us even as believers. But Paul points us to Christ, and he says, I've learned to be content because he's looking at God, and he's remembering that God is working through his life, even in those hardships. It's that same spirit of joy that's coming through Paul. And now we close out the final verses of Paul with verses 14 to verse 23. He begins in verse 14 with a beautiful concept, and I want you to pay attention to that verse. Yet it was good of you to share in my troubles. Paul's talking about the afflictions and the difficulties that he was facing, and he's thanking the Philippians. Thank you for standing by me when I was facing hardship. The picture behind the word, though, that Paul is talking about is that his affliction and his hardship was on the outside. Paul knew in his heart he was right with God. Paul was standing firm in faith. So there wasn't a problem on the inside. The problem was on the outside. And Paul says there were difficulties and there were hardships. He's talking about his trials. He's talking about all the things that he went through as a believer in the hardships and the struggles of his ministry. And he says, you stood by me. And it's a great encouragement for us to think about other people, whether they're just fellow believers, people in ministry, maybe they're just people that we need to witness to in the world, that we stand by them in hardship. It's a wonderful time and place for us to express love. It's a very important point at which offering that support and pointing other people to Christ in hardship can be a wonderful opportunity, whether it's an evangelism opportunity or just a place where we can encourage others in their faith. So don't miss out on that. Just being sure that we look to others and encourage them in their faith in times of difficulty. And then he says, I got what you sent. I received the financial gift that you sent, and I'm so thankful. And he recognizes that it is an offering that is acceptable and pleasing to God because it was sent in faith. And he wants to assure them, I know you gave to me and you probably made sacrifices to support me. And I just want to assure you that God will provide for you. God will continue to take care of you and provide for all of your needs. He closes this chapter with just a love and a sending of grace and mercy to his dear friends in Philippi. And he has indeed taught us much about joy. He has reminded us of all the things he's been through. He's reminded us of the partnership that he carries with the Philippians and the joy that has brought him as well. And so Paul has not only set a good example for us, but he's given us good guidance and encouragement, not just in Christian living, but in looking to Christ and standing firm in his word, standing together and looking to the righteousness of Christ.